Hey everyone, it's Jean here. Back in November, I made a video explaining why Hanfu is not hanbok. Throughout the video, I was basically trying to state 2 points. One, that Hanfu has a very long history of its own and exists in many forms, and influenced many traditional clothing of East Asian countries, including hanbok. Two, that in the modern day, we are all aware that China and Korea are two separate nations. Hanfu and hanbok are separate forms of clothing and both deserve to be respected. But it's not shameful to admit that hanbok was influenced by Hanfu. 2 months later, this video has over 70,000 comments and over 25,000 thumbs down. Moreover, due to the kimchi controversy over on Liz T's channel recently, I received another surge of comments from Korean netizens attacking Chinese culture, claiming that both kimchi and hanfu originated from Korea, and that we are the ones trying to steal from them. In the back end of my channel, I can see the average view time of my video. For this video, the average view time was only 2 minutes, which means that sadly, the vast majority of Korean netizens commenting probably didn't even finish watching it. My original intention was to clear up some misunderstandings, but the seemingly never-ending influx of comments from Korean netizens made me consider if I should make another video. Some of the comments I received are so brainless that I really cannot be bothered to write an academic reply. For example, comments claiming that I'm talking bullshit and telling me to shut up, even though I had historical citations to back me up. Comments directly attacking Chinese people for being crazy or brainwashed. Comments saying that China tried to turn English into a Chinese dialect, and then copying and pasting the same comment 1,000 times. Or even comments still insisting, after everything that I've said, that China's land belonged to Korea in the past. Anyone who has ever opened a real history book would not be making those claims in public, because it would just show how terribly ignorant you are. Instead of calling us crazy, maybe consider that you are the ones who have been brainwashed. Because this isn't the first time I've heard these ridiculous claims. Over the past few years, I've seen so many occasions when Korean netizens try to claim something as their own, even when it so obviously isn't. For instance, claiming that Dragon Boat Festival and Feng Shui all originated from Korea, claiming that Confucius was of Korean descent, and even trying to claim that Yao Ming had some kind of Korean lineage. There are so many more examples, I could go on for hours. But anyone with common sense knows that these can't possibly be true. So let's dive into responding to the comments made by more reasonable Korean netizens. I spent several hours going through over 70,000 comments and found a few arguments that our dear Korean friends seem to always like using. And here is a rebuttal against them. The first most commonly seen argument is that Ming Dynasty hanfu was greatly influenced by the Goryeo style. For instance, I have seen some Korean netizens try to argue that the Aojun style popular during the Ming Dynasty originated from the Goryeo style altogether. While it is true that some pieces of clothing, such as the square collar in the vest seen here, was influenced by the Goryeo style, most was still native to China. Aojun was a style of clothing where the top and bottom are separated and the top is not tucked into the bottom. While this style was mainly popular during the Ming Dynasty, historical records show that as far back as the 10th century, we had already seen similar styles exist, proven by the ceramic figurine uncovered from a burial tomb during the Song Dynasty. The second most common argument made by Korean netizens is that while they admit the clothing worn by the Korean royal court was influenced by China, the clothing worn by common citizens had nothing to do with China. Let's take a look at modern women's hanbok. Now, let's take a look at rutun, a popular form of clothing worn by a woman during the Tang Dynasty. The two look oddly similar, don't they? That's because modern-day hanbok, as we see in the picture here, was heavily influenced by the rutun. Archaeological evidence shows that initial traditional Korean clothing was influenced by nomadic groups in the north, with Skitai-Siberian and Xiongnu elements such as tight sleeves, vests, and pants. While it's true that hanbok existed before the Tang Dynasty, it was Tang Dynasty hanfu that really spread its essential design elements to Korea. At one point, Tang Dynasty conquered modern-day North Korea and had close relations with Shilla, which now exists as modern-day South Korea. Around 668 AD, Shilla began adopting Tang Dynasty-style clothing for the royal court. Other nobles soon followed, and the style quickly gained popularity amongst commoners as well. To be fair, I must mention that hanfu underwent a lot of evolution due to the existence of the Yuan dynasty, during which China was under Mongol rule. Existing during the same time as the Yuan dynasty was Goryeo, which became a vassal state to Yuan. As a result, there was a lot of cultural exchange between the two. And Goryeo did have a degree of influence on Yuan dynasty style clothing. This is why a lot of Korean netizens argue that because Ming came after Yuan, and Goryeo influenced Yuan, Ming Dynasty hanfu originated from Korea. However, this is a false claim, because firstly, while Goryeo style influenced Yuan Dynasty clothing, the degree of influence is debatable. And secondly, Ming Dynasty hanfu only took some references from Yuan Dynasty clothing. The majority of the styles was still passed down since before Yuan existed. Lastly, and most importantly, going back to our first video, we must remember that Korea was already under Chinese influence as early as 12th century BC. This means that all the Korean dynasties that came afterwards also fell under Chinese influence, and Goryeo borrowed heavily from Tang and Song dynasty culture. Same can be said for the Goryeo style of clothing. That's about it for the academic rebuttal part of this video. But before I end, I want to say one more thing. It was never Chinese netizens that tried to label hanbok as hanfu. It was the other way around. Take a look at these screenshots from social media. Korean netizens are the ones taking photos from Chinese hanfu stores, redrawing them, and then posting it to social media with the hashtag hanbok. Some are even so blatant as to directly repost photos of hanfu and to label them as hanbok, even though there is historical evidence showing that this style of hanfu originated from a painting in the Tang Dynasty. I don't hate Korean people. I think there are a lot of nice Korean people, like this one netizen who commented, explaining why he or she thinks why there have been so many false accusations flying around recently. I just wish there were more people like this, able to communicate with proof and logic, instead of copying and pasting hate speech everywhere. Just remember, doing so isn't going to make your country look any better. Instead, to onlookers, it's just gonna make Koreans look really bad and really unreasonable. So please, stop attacking each other and let's have an actual conversation. That will be the best for both hanfu and hanbok, which are separate styles of clothing that both deserve to be respected.